Welcome, everyone. I hope you're having an amazing day. Honored to be connecting in with you. And today we are looking at courage, reclaiming of self, overcoming terror, and how can we move forward in a powerful and positive way, reclaiming fully who we are, no matter what has happened to us. In March, I really love to focus on women's empowerment and springing forward. How do we keep that forward momentum going? We have an amazing guest today that has just an incredible story of survivorship and what she has been able to come through and bring that forward in such a powerful and positive way. And I don't want to give away too much because I'm really excited to have her share her perspective and her story, but I know you're going to be deeply impacted by what she has to share today. And I want you to be able to get the most out of our time together today. So, in order to do that, I want to encourage you to choose to be fully present. This is your time. This is your opportunity to be poured into, to be supported on your journey. So, I want you to take a breath in through the nose, all the way to your toes, and hold that for a moment. And then breathe out like you're breathing out through a straw, choosing to be present, to be open, and ready to receive everything that is here for you. And in fact, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. You're absolutely safe. Put both hands on your heart and take another breath in through the nose, all the way through to your toes, and then out again. And I'm going to encourage you with your hands on your heart to keep doing this breathing. I like to picture all the support and encouragement and tools and resources that I'm breathing in, and with that oxygen. And then when I breathe out, I'm releasing those things that no longer serve, creating room and space for more. So throughout our time together, as you're breathing, connecting in with your heart, you have this opportunity to create more space within you, to release those things that no longer serve, and to drink in what is supportive of you in our conversation today. But if we're going to dial this up just one more notch while your eyes are closed and your hands are on your heart, I want you to notice the beat of your heart and that little pause in between the beats. In that still, quiet space, what is it whispering to you? What is it that you need today to encourage and empower and support you? That you're open to receive because you absolutely have choice. What is it that you need and are willing to receive? What are you being reminded of? What emotion or feeling perhaps is coming forward? Beautiful. Receive all of that beautiful information and insight. Take another breath. Open up your eyes. Become fully present. Beautiful. Now, as you are becoming fully present, eyes open, take a moment and write down on a notepad or paper whatever came forward. What is it that you were reminded of, felt, prompted? That's important information and insight that becomes part of our conversation today. So write that down. And as you hear those things that spark something within you, prompt something within you, a follow up, a tool, write those things down, start to bring them forward. And I hope that you have a page or two full of notes and insights as we continue our conversation today. And I'd love to bring our amazing guest in and just have her share for a moment what was laid on her heart. So, Dr. Nichter, could you share just a moment when you paused and listened, something that was laid on your heart?
Yes, I remembered to be strong
Mm,
and to breathe deeply and to feel what I was feeling and not to move it aside, but to be in the moment.
mm,
And it brought me back to the place when I was writing. When you talked about writing, I thought about how much this process that you just did helped me and enabled me to write.
mm.
And the importance of that in moving forward, overcoming fear, and just seeing it, seeing these things as they come up, recognizing them, and then continuing to move forward.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I so appreciate that. And I know you have come through a lot and you have done a lot of writing. And so the wisdom that you're sharing is so rich around this. Thank you. I appreciate that. Listeners, as you've taken a moment to stop, pause, and listen, and perhaps there were feelings that come up because sometimes we kind of move those to the side or move to our thoughts instead or other things, and we can miss that wisdom and insight in those feelings and really being present with them and honoring them. So, as we go to our first commercial break, I invite you to stay present, really see what is coming forward, listen, receive, feel, and we will continue our conversation in just 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that moment, that time to just be, listen, receive, become even aware of your feelings and emotions. And writing them down is a way to have them not just swirl around in you, but to observe them, connect, honor, and not get stuck. We don't want to set residence in some of those emotions. We want to be able to move through them, and others we may want to invite to stay longer. Our amazing guest, I shared that she just has a really powerful story. We're going to have her share about that in a little bit, but I wanted to introduce you to her and just share a little bit. And this is just a snippet of her bio. You can absolutely see all of her information in the show details, where you can see an expanded bio and connection information. But I wanted to just share a few highlights. You understand the perspective from where she's coming from and what she is sharing. So, Dr. Mimi Nichter is the former professor of the University of Arizona School of Anthropology and held joint appointments in the College of Public Health and Norton School of, actually, can you help me with that? Health. I'm sorry. um,
You can
let
just
me, yeah, I'm so sorry. I jumbled that. Let me
No, you can just say I was in also with the School of Public Health and also with the with adolescent development.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. And just has a long history and expertise in that. Thank you. And she's received the Margaret Mead Award from the American Anthropology Association and has done a lot of work in the public sector in the area of anthropology. She has co authored multiple books and has a memoir that she has shared her story in. And she is passionate about making anthropology meaningful and accessible to more and more people around the world. So I am excited to welcome her officially to our show and have her just join and share her heart, her spirit, wisdom, and story with us. So please welcome the powerful and dynamic Dr. Mimi Nichter to the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm just thrilled to have you here today. And I wanted to start our conversation around why this work about anthropology and all that you have done in that space. Why is that something that's personally important to you?
Well, first I have to distinguish between my role as an anthropologist and
Mm-hmm.
this book, which is a memoir and actually precedes my being an anthropologist. But first of all, most people think of anthropology, they think of digging. I don't dig. I've been working with people. I'm a cultural anthropologist. And what that means is that I live with people in different parts of the world. For me, it's been South Asia, which means India, Sri Lanka, and Southeast Asia, like Indonesia, and explored ideas about how they're living, particularly related to health. What are their major health problems? How do they go about seeking care, etc. In the US, I've studied things like body image among girls, how they feel about their bodies, how young college students feel about social media, how it makes them feel. So it's really very relevant um, topics to the culture today. And that's what I've tried to do in my memoir, which we'll be talking about in a little while. My anthropology experience has impacted my writing of the book and my ability to understand something about the whole experience.
Thank you for sharing that and really giving us some clarity, because you're right. I think sometimes we picture digging as what that means. So,
Everybody thinks that, oh, you dig. I always wanted to be, whatever that program, you know who I mean, Harrison Ford.
yep, I'm right there with you. Mhm. Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, exactly. I'm not Indiana Jones.
Yeah, no, thank you for like, sharing a little bit about that and how much you're studying these types of things and bringing them forward to really help all of us, and how we're looking at ourselves, how we're looking at the world. I think that's really powerful work. And with this work that you're doing, why is it important to you to bring it forward, to share what you're discovering and studying?
Well, I think one of the things I take from my studies in anthropology is that we really have to learn how to listen. Most of my work is based on interviews and talking to people, and I feel like I took those skills and sort of turned them on myself, listening to my own body, my own thoughts. And also, I realized that looking back on the experience of my book, which is when I was a hostage in Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
that even there I was listening to, observing what was happening, but also listening to what my captors were saying, not in a way that I was, bonding with them in any way, but just sort of being open to hearing what was going on and not closing down. I think that's so important in anthropology. If,
Mm,
if you if you don't stay open to what people are telling you, it's very difficult. You have to
mm,
just talk to many different people and gather information and be objective.
mm,
And so I think that objectivity that I had to have over my course of my career, I also take into my book.
mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that and staying open in a situation like that. I think that would be incredibly hard to not, just shut down, separate,
Of
but
course.
staying open and present, and that's a tool that you've been able to use in so many ways in your life and bring forward. And listeners, I like for you to really add that to your toolbox, that willingness to hear, to stay open, to listen, even when things are scary or hard, that we're willing to do that. And I'd love for you to share, if you are okay, a little bit about what happened in 1970 with
Yeah.
being a hostage, and just have our listeners understand that experience a little bit.
Yeah, well, I'd like to put your listeners in the time and space of the book. I was 20 years old, and this was in September of 1970. I was wearing a green mini dress, the last person to board a plane. I was going home to New York after a summer in Israel, and the plane was hijacked. A person at that time, you could get on a plane with guns and grenades,
Mm,
and a man and woman ran down the aisle in the middle of the flight and said, the plane is being hijacked. They got on the intercom and said, "We are the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Don't be afraid. We're taking you to a friendly country." And the plane turned around
mm,
midair, made a really sharp turn, and the bags fell into the middle of the aisle. And then we flew for another 5 or 6 hours, and finally we landed in Jordan in the middle of the desert. There was no airport, no terminal, no runway even. The pilot had to bring the plane down on the sand.
mm,
And but we still, I have to explain that at that time, this was way before 9/11, of course,
mm-hmm.
1970, and I knew very little about world politics, particularly Middle Eastern politics, even though I'd spent the summer in Israel. And I was very naive, as were many people on the plane. But some people who had dual passports with Israel and the US were immediately afraid and started ripping up their passports as the plane was landing.
Wow.
So that was kind of the initial moments.
Mm-hmm.
And as we looked out the window, there were soldiers with guns, and then it began to dawn on me.
Mm. So as this unfolded, I could see just confusion, shock, not understanding, and then seeing people's responses around you. Um, were you afraid, confused? Kind of where where did this go for you, and how did you, um, as things unfolded, continue to stay present and open?
Well, we were actually held on that plane for 6 days.
Wow.
And when a plane's engines is turned off, there's no air conditioning, there's
Mm-hmm.
no flushing toilets, there's no running water. And as the days unfolded, as more people got on the plane, our Palestinian captors with guns, it really,
Mm-hmm.
I relied on other passengers to sort of explain to me, my neighbor who was sitting next to me, to really explain to me what the story was here, what was going on, and what they wanted from us, because I saw myself as a young American, how I was, a young American college student.
Mm-hmm.
What could they possibly want from someone like me? And over those 6 days, we had diminishing food, diminishing water. The plane was wired with explosives, and it was hot. We were sitting in a sort of aluminum oven in the middle of the
Yeah.
desert,
Yeah.
and we had to sleep sitting up, of course. And, our captors were walking down the aisles. They were interrogating us. I was interrogated at gunpoint,
Mm.
and it became more and more frightening every day.
Thank you for sharing. And I'm so sorry that you went through that. And I celebrate that you came through and are with us today. And as those days went on and you continued to be in that environment, how did things start to shift? What was it like as things moved forward and you were eventually able to come home?
Well, it is a long story, which is why I wrote a
Mm-hmm.
book, because it was over
Mm-hmm.
a course of 21 days. And
Yeah.
as I said, they interrogated me and they determined, or they believed, that I was an Israeli soldier because I had a shirt, an army shirt that a friend had given me
Mm.
one day, and I had it in my backpack because I thought if I got cold on the plane, I'd put it on. Well, they found that, and they found some pictures I had with friends who had been in the army, because everyone my age in Israel is in the army. And they just said, you are, a soldier. And so they decided to keep me
Mm.
beyond when everyone else was sent home. And they
Mm.
basically, the people that they kept were Jewish and were
Mm-hmm.
American.
Wow.
And the non-Jews were sent home kind of earlier. And over the course of that week, they took 3 planes and they blew them up. And I
Mm.
watched as they wired the planes and blew them up. And I actually felt a sense of horror as well as relief,
Mm.
because I wasn't on the plane when they blew it up,
Yeah.
and they had threatened to do that. So after the planes were blown up, most people were released. Even more people were released, but I and 4 other women and 26 men were kept for an additional 2 weeks. And that was even worse because a civil war broke out, known as Black September, which was between the captors and the King Hussein of Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was a very frightening, terribly frightening, even worse than the conditions on the plane,
Mm-hmm.
because there were there was bombing, continuous bombing in the city of Amman where we were being held, and we were very worried, very fearful about our lives.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. I am just sitting here listening to your story unfold. And I know these are just little tiny highlights of that experience that you shared and that time. We are getting ready to go to our next commercial break. And as we do so, listeners, I want you just to sit with what is being shared, what is coming to your heart, and maybe there are some challenging things that you're navigating, and this being present and hearing another story of some of the incredibly difficult, scary, terrifying things someone has come through can encourage you and support you. We'll come back in just 2 minutes, continuing the story, and look forward to having all of you join us in just a moment. Welcome back, everyone. We've been talking with Dr. Nichter, and she's been sharing her story, moments of her being taken as a hostage and held for so many days, and some of what she experienced in those moments as just a young college person facing incredible circumstances that I think are terrifying and traumatizing. And I, again, just my heart goes out to you and to Mimi in this space of what she's experiencing, and just wanted you to continue to share.
Are you
Oh
Rebecca?
yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I was so sorry. I was waiting for you. I thought it was a
Okay.
dramatic pause. So
No.
we were
Yes, no,
just
I'm
coming
sorry.
back and excited to I don't know if excited is the right word. I would say just I feel so pulled into what you're sharing. And I think the part I'm excited about is that I know you're here today. I know you survived
Hmm.
these incredibly difficult circumstances that you faced as a hostage at 20 years old, and the days as they unfolded and what you experienced to come all the way through to be able to talk to us today. I just am honored that you're willing to share, and your story is so impactful. And so I invite you to continue. We're talking a little bit about what happened um, during that time, and that the battle that broke out, the bombs that you're just facing, all of that. And I'm curious, as time went on, how you were eventually able to come back, how that felt, and what you've discovered and kind of carried forward
Hmm.
with you.
Yeah. No, when I came back, and remember again, this is 1970, and at that time, this was a good while before we had the concept of post-traumatic stress syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
PTSD. And soldiers who had come home from war were just supposed to move forward. And in the same way, a hostage who came home was supposed to get back into life, just move on, and with very little or no acknowledgement that something very major had happened and that we, not just me, but my fellow hostages, were carrying a level of trauma that needed help. But I didn't get that. And my own family did not talk about many things. Like my parents didn't ask me a lot of questions about what happened. They also thought that it would be best if I moved on. And I think today we know that doesn't happen. It may happen for some, but for many others, there can be, lingering impacts, lingering effects. And I did basically what they told me to do, my parents, and went back to college. And I found that my friends who were largely, it was a time of anti-Vietnam War protests, etc. And they didn't understand what had happened to me. They thought maybe it was even kind of cool that I'd been with revolutionaries and people who were fighting for freedom. And I just felt that their perspective was so naive that I began not to talk about what had happened. And that, I think after kind of a short time, I just put that being the hostage experience and the fear, the terror that I had experienced, the fear of dying. And I just put it like in a box that was inside me. And I sealed it. And I just didn't talk about it. And even across my life when I went to therapy for some reason, from whatever problem I had, I never mentioned that I had been a hijack hostage.
Mm. That's interesting how we can have those boxes locked away. And was it just so locked away and sealed that you didn't think it was important or impactful, or you forgot parts, or just
Uh,
curious?
you know, It was just that when if I ever talked about it, if I ever said, oh, because let's say there was a hostage crisis, and I might say to a very good friend who I was, taking a walk with or something, I might say, oh, I was a hijack hostage once. And then they would start asking me questions about it. And I just I observed in myself that my breath became regular. I got a headache. I just,
Mm,
started shaking, and I felt not just tired in that moment or ill in that moment, but even for a few days, if I talked about it at all,
mm,
I just couldn't. And so as time went on, I really talked about it even less.
wow.
So that was, and that's what happens, I think, when we put something away so deeply.
Hmm.
Um, oh,
Well, and our body remembers. So when you start to
yes,
get close, those
yes,
things coming
yes,
forward and coming out and
yeah.
expressing, so I can understand. And yeah, I know you feel this compelling and calling to start talking about it and to share and have written about it and are bringing that forward. So I'd love for you to share why that became important and what are some of the ways you were able to support yourself to be able to talk about it and to really own your story in it.
Yeah. I think as I got older, I realized that I had suppressed this story for so long. And as part of my healing journey, I felt that I wanted to share my trauma. Culture had really changed. And remember, I'm a cultural anthropologist. So
Mm-hmm,
for so many years, it was really inappropriate to talk about trauma. Especially I feel especially for women
mm-hmm,
for many years. And then kind of culture changed probably a decade ago where suddenly talking about our trauma and reflecting on it, sharing with others became something that we could do. And we realized it was so important to do it. So I, I also realized that this was really a burden that I was carrying,
mm-hmm,
that hidden trauma, this kind of almost shame, not that I had anything to be ashamed of, but something that I felt was so out of the ordinary and just so unusual. And I just felt, it was actually part of a larger issue for me because I had been socialized to hide things that didn't fit. I had a brother who had mental illness, and we were always told not to talk about him. And that's kind of how I learned to, keep my things that didn't seem quote unquote normal.
Mm-hmm.
I think then at a certain point, I had suppressed it for so long that, I realized I think it took me a lifetime to understand that it's really important to share our feelings and explore our trauma, not only because it helps you or me personally, but because it can help others.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. And as you have been sharing your story and bringing it forward, do you have like, this is my intention, this is what I hope it does in the world? Have you had responses along the way that have supported, encouraged, impacted your sharing?
Well, the book is just out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we have just early readers here. But I feel that it has, very few people will have the experience of being a hostage, as
Mm-hmm.
I did, but
Correct.
in the classic sense. But a lot of people, I feel, can relate to this because they've been a hostage to a situation like, an abusive parent or a domineering husband or a a very a boss, at work, or people at work who demean you or something. You're hostage. You become a hostage to a situation, and so I want people to get that, a sense of what it means. Like for me, it was a loss of my identity, and somebody else saying, "Well, this is who you are," and not being able to really be seen as who you really, really are. And I think, the other thing that I feel is that there's a real danger to othering. Like in my case, the Palestinians thought of me as, kind of a Jewish imperialist who hated them. And in fact, I didn't know enough about them to hate them. So what I take away from that is that going back to this idea of the divisive nature of the world, that, and I grew up without a black and white, there was right and wrong. And I think I learned along the way that there was gray, a lot of gray area. And this goes back to the idea of needing to listen,
Mm-hmm.
needing to observe what was going on in the world, which is what I carry with me, both, and it has helped me in my career as an anthropologist as well. So I think it's very important to be curious about our own trauma and not to just, say it was bad, it was harmful. Not to be curious and find something good about it. No, and I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is just really examining what has happened to you and just having that, bringing that moments of curiosity and questioning and not continuing to just see it in one way. And that may take going and getting help, it may take talking to a good friend or just as you're encouraging your listeners to really to breathe and to sit with it and to examine, what happened
Yes.
and how you feel about it today.
Thank you for sharing. And a few things that I just highlighted and noted for myself as you were sharing, that noticing how your body was responding and reacting when anything would get close to the box within you,
Hmm.
and then being courageous enough to honor that and open the box, and that it had become a burden within you that you were willing to um, work through, and that takes a lot of courage to do. And then you're willing now to share what you've discovered and learned in your experience and bring that forward, and how we can be hostages in different places and ways in our life, and
Hmm.
where we might be hiding or looking at things or feeling that trauma, that we can come through it. And I feel like you're such an incredible testament to that and what you've been able to do, and to bring forward and share your book. And congratulations on bringing that forward. I know that is a huge undertaking. So
Yes.
it's always more than people know when you are bringing a book forward, bringing a memoir forward. And that is just a rich gift to all of us in the world that you're willing to share your experience on that level with us. As you're reflecting back on our conversation and some of the things that you shared, is there something on your heart that you're really hoping readers discover in this book or listeners are able to take with them as a result of our conversation today?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that's really important is that we have more resources than we think we do. And I think you don't have to be a hijack hostage to understand this or to learn this about yourself. For example, you can, in your life, maybe you become a caretaker of someone in your family. And you, at first, you're overwhelmed, but you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we don't know what we have until we're faced with it.
Mm,
And I felt that while I was writing the book. And so that one thing that we can carry with us is we have more resources than we think we do. And also that when we look at people and we think they're we may think they're so resilient. Well, everybody, I think, has these hidden parts of themselves and the traumas that we all carry. And so I think that's something that binds us together as people, both being able to recognize what we've gone through and also to realize that we have the strength to move through it.
yes. Thank you for sharing that. It is so true. And sometimes we don't know our strength or what we are able to do until we are faced with really difficult, challenging things. and
Yeah.
and that comes forward and that resilience. We discover a lot in choosing to keep going forward. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I know when your book just comes out, it's an especially busy time. So I appreciate you carving out time to talk with us today. We're going to take our next commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to have you share the best ways for people to connect in and any final tips that you have for us. So,
Okay.
listeners, we'll look forward to continuing our conversation in just a moment. Welcome back, everyone. I appreciate you leaning into our conversation today. We were talking a little bit behind the scenes, Mimi, Dr. Michter, and I, and just I so appreciate all that she's brought forward. And she even has a final tip she's going to share with us as well that we're going to be able to add to our toolbox and to our perspective as we go back out into the day. And what I encourage you to do is, as she's going to share her contact information, where to get her book, the full title, write those things down. We're sharing them purposely. We think these are important tools and resources that can really support you in your walk and in your journey. So make sure you've got that pen handy as she shares that information. And then take a few moments at the end of the show. As the time comes to a close, remember you get to pause, you get to breathe, you get to choose how you step forward into the day. The day doesn't get to be in charge, you do. So you get to choose how you're going to navigate forward today based on what you've discovered, what is bubbling up. So, with that, Mimi or Dr. Michter, I know I'm switching back and forth. They are both you.
Yes,
I would
yes.
love for you to share a final tip, piece of advice, or perspective with us. And then we'd love all of your contact information and how to find your amazing book.
Okay. Well, I think my final tip is to tell everybody that we really need your stories. And if you're not a writer, I get that completely. It's a difficult process to do that. But just to talk about something that's happened to you that you might have thought was you've held very close for many years and you didn't want to talk about it. You might think about talking about that to a good friend or to your partner or to someone in your life that can listen to you. And you'll be surprised at how it might make you feel lighter as you move through your day. So try that. And in terms of my book, it's Hostage, a memoir of terrorism, trauma, and resilience. And you can get it on Amazon. You can get it on at the University of Nebraska Press. You and if you like it, if you read it, which I encourage you to do, people say it's a memoir that reads like a novel. I encourage you to give it a review, on Amazon or Goodreads or something like that. I'd love that because it's just published and we're trying to push it into the world. You can find my website, www.miminichter, MIMINICHTER.com. You can find me on Instagram at Mimi Nichter, one word, or you can even be a Facebook friend with me also at Mimi Nichter, Mimi.Nichter. But yeah, Mimi.Nichter is Facebook. So please join on and get my book. I think you'll be surprised at and how it reads and what you might take away from it, I hope. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing. I know they will get so much out of it, and what a opportunity it is to have someone share that has experienced what you've experienced and the perspective that you have today to be able to go back in time and share that with us is just a um, rich and impactful tool that we're able to bring into our life. So thank you for bringing the book forward. Thank you for sharing with us today. And I hope everyone heard that invitation to be Facebook friends. You have that opportunity to connect and go deeper. And do you mind sharing the full title of your book one more time? I just want to make sure everybody got it.
Yeah, Hostage, a memoir of terrorism, trauma, and resilience. And again, my name is Mimi Nichter. The reason I'm emphasizing that, especially the subtitle, The Memoir of Terrorism, Trauma, and Resilience, is because there is another book that came out a few months ago with the same title, but don't get that one. Get mine, Mimi Nichter.
Yeah, we want to make sure people aren't confused.
Don't be confused, right? This is the one about
Exactly.
being a hostage in 1970. So as long as you have my name, I think you're good.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate your willingness to just share so deeply and richly with us today. And I'm excited to see your book rippling out into the world and impacting hearts and lives. Listeners, I want to thank you for leaning in and joining us today as well. I hope you have many notes that you have taken and thoughts or things that have bubbled up as our conversation went along, and what really has stuck with you. Take a moment at the end of the show today and just write down those couple things that really impacted you, touched your heart and spirit, and carry that with you as you go forward. I love the tip and advice to start telling your story, even if it's to a trusted friend. Like that can be a step that you take as a result of our conversation today. Remember that each of you are a gift, beautifully, powerfully, and resiliently made for such a time as this. There's no one else in the world just like you, and you are absolutely needed. Your voice, your story, your message, your way of being matters and makes a difference. So as you go forward, as you go back out into the day, do so with purpose, do so with intention. Be willing to bloom where you're planted and shine. Have an amazing week, everyone. And